I wanted to talk a little bit about conversation starters. I mean, I feel like the number one question I get from everybody is I'm just not sure how to bring up real estate, or I'm not sure how to show my value as a referral associate. Why are they going to bother giving me a referral versus just, finding somebody on their own? That objection I'm going to spend a little more time on next time. I want to focus a little more on that kind of objection handling concept. But for this month, I want to just focus on really easy conversation starters and also questions and topics you really need to know how to talk about so that people perceive you as having a lot of value as a real estate resource. Because if somebody, well, I'll get to the questions in a minute. I don't want to give it all away. So we'll start with this. And so this is, and I forget what webinar I was on or podcast I was listening to, or maybe it was a Tom Ferry one or whatever. But one of them said, oh, this is my favorite way. And it wasn't specifically for referral associates, it was for realtors, but it's totally applicable for referral associates, which is, let's say you're visiting with a neighbor or you're just hanging out with people, people love to gossip. So instead of being like, who do you know who's looking to buy or sell a home, which feels very proactive, like a little more in your face, a little more like, I want to get something from you, like I need you to give me a referral. What if you said instead, hey, have you heard any rumors about anybody looking to move? And just leave it like that. Suddenly somebody goes, actually, I was hearing that my neighbor down the block has kids graduating from high school. They're thinking of selling their house because the taxes are so high. I know they've been thinking of moving to South Carolina, whatever. Or it could be they might say, actually, I'm thinking of selling my house, but maybe not until next year, but whatever. So to try to soft pedal this a little bit and try to do it in a conversation where you're not specifically asking for the referral at that moment. And you're just saying, have you heard any rumors about anybody looking to move? If they say yes, and you talk about it, then you can talk about how you're a referral associate. And we can talk a little more at another time about how to position all that value proposition language of what you can do. But that's a really good one. And then another one, which kind of leads into my 5 questions in a moment, but everybody's talking about the real estate market. Oops, wrong direction. Sorry, guys. Oh, it's not letting me go. There we go. So again, if you're just chit-chatting, what have you been hearing about the market? Ask them that. And if they say, well, I don't know, I've been hearing it's a terrible time to buy because interest rates are so high and I don't know what, I was thinking of doing it, but I'm not now, or whatever they might say. But the minute you open up that conversation into like, so what have you been hearing about the market? What are your thoughts about the real estate market? That gives you the opening and kind of permission to talk about real estate in a way that doesn't feel like you're just pushing your own agenda. You're just having a conversation. So that kind of leads into this. And I was on one of my favorite sites that I go on to pull a lot of the information I share with you, and you can kind of poke around on there too, is Keeping Current Matters, which is just a great resource with, I have a subscription to it, but I share kind of the unbranded stuff with you guys periodically, and I'm going to do that in this segment. But it just is a really great resource. So I want to open this up for a half a second to see what you guys think. What are the biggest questions you think people ask you that you might need the answers for? Does anybody have any thoughts, kind of like real estate related questions that people ask that you probably should know how to answer? Anybody? There's crickets. Okay. I'll give you the answer. So I'll go through my answers. Number 1, okay, and this is not in any 1 to 5, like most to least order. These are just 5 questions. Is the housing market going to crash? I feel like everybody is sitting in their heads with 2008 in their head, and they're worried that the market's going to crash. So again, if you're presenting yourself as a real estate professional to people and you want them to trust you to, let them help you with their real estate needs, you should definitely have some information for them to be able to share, right? So this is a great blog post that and I'm going to share this whole deck with you, so you'll have the links and everything like that. So you don't have to write any of this down. But I would start by period. Number one, you should read all of these that I'm giving you, is read the full blog post. They're short, they're not too long, but then you can share the links onto your Facebook page, right? And then you can share a particular graphic periodically. And the reason that the market is not crashing is that the supply. So if somebody says to you, what do you think's happening with the market? You think it's going to crash? The answer really is the market is nothing like it was in 2008. The supply of homes is nothing like it was in 2008. We have very limited inventory, so demand is still high. And while interest rates may have gone up, it's still a very strong real estate market. It's not in free fall because we don't have that abundance of inventory that we had in 2008. Inventory is much tighter, right? And so this could be the caption on your Instagram or your Facebook, something like, if you're concerned, and again, or just to know in your own head, if you're concerned we're making the same mistakes that led to the housing crash, this graph should help alleviate your fears. There just isn't enough inventory on the market for home prices to come crashing down like they did the last time, even though some overheated markets may experience slight declines, right? And we can add more hashtags. I should add a Weichert hashtag there or whatever. But that's really it, is to reassure people it's the market's not crashing. Does that mean every single market, even the ones that shot up like a rocket, are not going to see some softening? Of course, because people were paying 20% over asking price. You can't sustain 20% increases every time you turn around. So some markets may have a little softening. That's a little different than a crash, right? That was just like interest rates were artificially low for a moment, prices were artificially high for a moment. And the fact that things are coming back into balance doesn't mean it's a crash. So that's something to know. Another question. Everybody wants to know what's happening with the mortgage rates. Everybody is concerned. And again, the mortgage rates will come back down. It is just a matter of time, right? So I know the Fed is there's indicators they might raise it again a little and blah, blah, blah. It's going to go up. It's going to come down. It's going to come down at some point. It may not be this quarter, this half of the year. It may not even be this year, but mortgage rates will come down. And this is kind of a picture for you. And this just goes back not even that long. This was just from January 2022 to show you the run up it was, right? And now, it goes down a little, goes up in this market, but it will continue to rise and fall and be a little bit unpredictable, but ultimately it's going to come down. Right. So if you were having a conversation with somebody, you can say something like, if you're waiting for mortgage rates to drop, you may be waiting for a while as the Fed works to get their inflation under control. And if you're considering renting as your alternative while you wait it out, remember that's going to get more expensive with time also. So each person's situation is unique. If you want to talk about it more, let's connect to explore your options, right? Something along those lines. But even conversationally, some people may opt to rent in the short term. Other people may say, you know what, I just want to get into the market right now. And if I can refinance when the mortgage rates come down, but I need a place. I want to buy, I want to renovate, I want to put down roots, right? Next question. If the economy slows down further, what does that mean for real estate? Now, I don't know that anybody's going to word it that way and ask you that specifically in that wording, but this is really about that dreaded R word, recession. So what does recession mean for real estate, right? Again, here's another great blog post to share. I'll send you that link. But the important thing to realize is that recession typically, when you're full on in recession, it typically means that the mortgage rates come down, which I know as a layman, maybe somehow doesn't compute like whatever, but that's what it's this rise and fall equilibrium thing. So as you get into the recession, typically the mortgage rates come down. So if they're hearing the word recession, they shouldn't panic that means higher interest rates. Again, this is a sample post you could make. Historically, each time the economy slowed down, mortgage rates decreased. And while history doesn't always repeat itself, we can learn from it. While an economic slowdown needs to happen to taper inflation, it hasn't always been a bad thing for the housing market. Typically, it has meant that the cost to finance a home has gone down, and that's a good thing. So we're still watching and waiting, right? But again, that's how recession ties in to mortgage rates. And so, again, what's happening with home prices? That is a question you're going to hear, right? What's happening with home prices? The first thing is every market is hyper local, right? So, what's happening for me, I live in Ridgewood, might be different than what's happening here where I sit in Morris Plains, which may be different than what's happening in Virginia or South Jersey or Florida or anywhere else, right? So, that is one of the biggest values we bring, which is let me connect you with one of my partners in your local market so they can give us the nitty gritty about what's happening in your specific market. And the market may be as specific the side of town you live on, right? Some again, neighborhoods are more than just counties and towns. It's sometimes very hyper local about what's in and out. Um, but again, in terms of the forecast from the experts, I don't consider myself a forecasting expert, so I go by the experts. And this is kind of the range of what the industry experts are expecting for home prices. A little bit up, some say a little bit up, some say a little bit flat, some say a little bit down. Um, on average, again, it's going to change by market. So some might go up a little, some might go down a little, but they're not expecting a 20% drop. They're just not. Nobody's expecting the bottom to fall out. And this again is kind of the messaging around that, which is as the housing market cools in response to the dramatic rise in mortgage rates, home appreciation is cooling as well. And if you're following along with the headlines in the media, you're seeing conflicting messaging. The most likely outcome is we'll fall somewhere in the middle of slight appreciation and slight depreciation, which means kind of neutral. We are where we are. So there's not anything crazy happening. It's, I know I saw reports from some of the realtors locally, like they were doing open houses this past Sunday in New Jersey, and they had 30 and 40 people coming through. So the buyers are still out there. There's still limited inventory and the buyers are still showing up. Now, all of those buyers may not be rushing to make those offers the way they are, because I don't see those 30 offers coming in on the first weekend anymore, but there is still the pent up buyer demand out there, right? Next, I think this might be the last question. Should I wait to buy a home? Again, this is what every buyer is asking. And this really comes down to those long term benefits of homeownership, right? Homes typically appreciate within the time frame people own them. If you're I'm not talking about flippers who want to buy today and sell in 3 months or something. We're not playing, that kind of game with real estate. But if you're saying I'm going to be in the house for 5 years, I'm going to be in the house for 7 years, I'm going to be in the house for 10 years, it will appreciate historically. It has shown us that they appreciate. So you're not only, instead of paying rent, which is just going nowhere, you're paying down your principal and you're also getting appreciation on what was a smaller down payment, right? So you're getting 100%, you're getting appreciation on 100% of the value of your home with anywhere from 5 to 20% down. So you're getting a lot of appreciation. Um,